being videotape recorded. You can turn the camera off, but as you go into your breakout rooms, please feel free to turn those cameras back on. We will only be recording this main session. We do ask that you keep yourself muted. This will help prevent any background noise or distractions during the presentation. But we do ask that you stay fully engaged and ask questions. We'll do that through the chat box here. There will always be somebody monitoring the chat box to get your comments and questions throughout the session. And then just as another reminder, this session is being recorded. So we appreciate your participation in that. And then second, the final thing before we move on is we would like to do and cast a poll at the beginning of this workshop and then again at the end. We'd really like to gauge our efforts here. So you should have a poll popped up on your screen. Just select one of the options and submit and you'll be good to go. Okay, so looks, I'm not sure, can you see the polling results here? Let me stop and share the results really quick and then I'll officially pass it on to Monet, but it looks like this is a new thing for some of you and some of you are familiar, but so this is gonna be very beneficial for you today. All right, so I'm gonna officially pass it on to Monet to get started.
All right, thank you so much, Debbie. And once again, thank you everybody for being here, especially on a Saturday and doing this on behalf of your students and maybe even on behalf of your teachers, because we all know we love resources and sharing information. So we definitely hope that from today's presentation, you have a takeaway and share this with your students and with your teachers. So with that, we're going to be talking about the design heuristics, and it looks like some people are familiar with the design heuristics, so that's great. And then later on, we're going to be doing some activities that deal with actually using these cards and what they look like. So the design heuristics are basically just concept modifiers that quickly lead to a potential solution when you providing the opportunity for a novel design to occur. I've been doing this workshop for the past 3 years with our teachers, and they've all found this as a great resource and tool for them to utilize in their classroom. This was initially created for engineering design students in college, but we definitely found the benefit in using this with our middle school and high school students. So this will be really great, especially for your students that are doing the National Engineering Design Challenge. So with that, so when you have a design problem or a design challenge, you have your students identify what is the problem, right? And who are they identifying for, or who they are solving a problem for. And we would hope that the design space would be diverse, right? And they would have all these possible solutions A through E. And we would also hope that they would synthesize and transform all their possible solutions into an alpha prototype, right? Their initial prototype, and then their beta prototype. And then they would have a beta plus prototype, which would be their final prototype that they would present at nationals or state. We would hope that this would happen, right? But sometimes we're faced with students who are often kind of just stuck with a specific solution, and sometimes fixation happens. Fixation often happens when the students are familiar with an existing product. If you ask your student to design for a pen, they'll design a pen because they know what a pen looks like. They'll just stick with that design. Or if you have students that have been a part of the MESA program before, they're coming to this design challenge with a prototype that they've already developed, they're going to stick with that previous experience, right? Or you have students, a group of students that when they're solving for a problem, they only have one solution and they stick with that one solution. We want them to go beyond that one solution, but that type of fixation results in a narrow design space. So how do we promote innovation through creativity and diversity? How do we get students to have that diverse set of possible solutions, right? So that's what the design heuristics is. It is either a concept generation technique. Now, concept generation technique is ideally used in the ideation phase when students are beginning a design challenge, Or this can be used as a concept transformation technique, which is often used in the ideation phase. But either way, students can use this in the beginning, the end, ideally throughout the entire design process. You can use these design heuristics so that students, their solution space, they have their initial obvious ideas, and we want them to push beyond that. So that's what these heuristics do. We have them explore multiple mini possibilities so that when they're coming to their prototype, it's a novel prototype, something that isn't out there on the market, or it isn't out there currently, that they've seen or that they've experienced before, or even it's not a prototype that is similar to another team within their school district, or within the state. It's something unique, and we all want that for our students, right? So I'm going to hand this off to Liz, who is then going to introduce you to what the design heuristics look like, how they're used, and we're going to jump into the activities of either in an idea generation phase or an idea transformation phase.
Right. Hi, everyone. So as Monet had mentioned, with these design heuristics, these are allowing that opportunity, for being able to explore those various possible solutions in that particular design space. So when you first see a heuristic, what you'll see is a description of what you're being asked to do. So for example, we're observing card 13. It's asking us, apply existing mechanism in a new way. So what you'll see is an abstract image depicting the application of the heuristic. And then Monet, if you can move to the next slide. And then on the back side of the card, you will actually see how that heuristic is being applied. So in card 13, it was asking apply an existing mechanism in a new way. And now in the back, it's showing a sketch of how that heuristic was evident in a particular product. And so here we see a desk organizer on the lower left hand, a desk organizer using brush bristles to hold pens and pencils. So definitely different and innovative when you consider how a brush is typically used. Or how it can utilize hand vacuum cups to transport large sheets of glass, that are typically used to hold the seat and back of this chair in place. So it's taking something that was created, but now applying this heuristic so that it is used in a new way. Go ahead, Monet. Next slide. So we are going to be engaging and learning a little bit more about design heuristics. And we are going to move into breakout rooms so that we can actually apply these methodologies to explore idea generation. So everyone is going to be divided into breakout rooms where you will have 2 design heuristic cards that you'll be utilizing, where one needs to be used for a particular object. And we're actually going to give a little bit more time to collaborate, probably on the order of about 8 minutes for every group. You will have one of our leads that was introduced earlier, whether it's Emily or Alex or myself or Monet in each of the rooms. And one of the new tools that we'll be utilizing is called Jamboard, so that we can work together collaboratively to share our ideas and our thoughts. And then we're going to take a few minutes to actually share what we came up with. And so, Monet, do you want to move to the next slide? So for this particular task, for the idea generation, which we're going to engage in, we're going to apply design heuristic number 26 and number 76, where we're going to convert for a second function, or we're going to utilize an opposite surface depending on the object that your room is going to have. And I believe I forgot to mention that the object is either going to be a salt shaker or a vase or possibly even a chair. Next slide, Monet. And looking at those heuristics, so some of the examples that they had shown as far as the images, so converting for a second function, as an example, utilizing a table as turning it up and outside and using it as a barrier. So now they have changed that table, the object, into a different function, which is a barrier. And then for utilizing the opposite surface, in one of the samples that they showed here on the card, they took the backside of the chair surface and actually applied a pocket to be used for storage. In this particular example, when they applied this heuristic to a chair. So again, we are going to break out into these rooms, and we're going to apply these cards to a particular object and work together. Are there any questions before we move on? And oh, one thing I do not want to forget, so most important during that share out, there are some questions that we want you to keep in mind. What was your most creative idea? Which heuristic was most useful, and which was difficult to apply? And again, you'll have a facilitator present to help guide you.
Okay, breakout rooms are ready, and I'll just launch them right now if everybody's ready. Okay.
All right, welcome back, everyone. So we had our first task at hand that we went through. And so I'm going to ask for some of the group volunteers, and it looks like I'm going to definitely ask Alex's team and my breakout room to be able to share. And if the other two would like to share and describe what they came up with would be great too. So before I ask, maybe I'll just have my group go first. Alex, are you good with that?
Just a reminder, it's about 3 minutes to share.
Yeah, yes, Liz, that's totally fine. You can go first.
All right. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen so that you can see our group's Jamboard. And Bethany, do you want to unmute yourself and describe what we did?
Yes, so we thought it could be a grinder, like a rolling pin where you can like lay it down on its side and you can roll stuff out. And so that goes for 26 and 76 because we're converting and we're changing it. And then we also did painting. If you put paint on it, you can do different designs on a paper, which it hits both. We said a hat you can put on your head, but that might not be as practical because it might not fit your head and won't do anything for you. That was my idea. And then mold, just molding things with it. So, and somebody else put a pillow you could use as a pillow to help your neck. And so those were our great ideas of being able to convert it for a second function, and then also utilizing opposite surfaces.
Yeah, so I think overall, I believe we had agreed that one of the most creative we felt was the grinder. I think we had all agreed with that. And I would say just personally, I really like the painting idea too, because of using it as another mechanism for design. So really taking it out of its space. Well, both of them really do, the grinder and the painting and the rolling roll. Bethany, I'm trying to remember. Everything passed so quick, so bear with us. I'm not really sure that we actually answered which one was most useful for the heuristic. I do feel personally at first 26, and then it just kind of, we realized that 76 just happened to be implemented in many of the ideas that we came up with as a team. All right, Alex, would you like to go next?
Yeah, yes, as I can. So we had a little bit of troubleshooting errors. So then we, as it kind of rushed all together as my group, as it really came together, as it had their ideas, as finally were able to get their ideas out there. And so they really made sure to utilize at least pretty much both of the heuristic cards, as no matter who inputted all of these. The first one, as it was, put it over electric tea lights to create refracting effects, so that it's create nice little lighting effects. Be able to use it for a second function. It can be used as a tool for drawing methods. It can, I can use it for water house plants that are small, as a hold medicine while getting water, so don't lose on the counter. As a tool for teaching blind people, because the salt shaker has texture and different shape. I think a lot of people were very receptive to that one, as I can use it for small items like buttons, make a holder, as a bigger use as toothpick dispensers. I'm pretty sure our group, I really found ways to utilize both of them to be able to use it, use both the surfaces to be able to create sort of different effects or be able to use them as a drawing tool. But then I think a lot of people found that the first card, as a number 26, was more the one that was more successful for them to be able to think about as on a very quick as a passing time. And again, it was like I didn't have time to answer all of the questions because of troubleshooting errors, but as I apologize for my group, as well as we're still learning.
No, we completely understand because, you know, we threw a lot of new information at you and a new tool on top of that for many of us not as familiar with Jamboard, but I think it's also excellent practice. So you're learning, like, it's a twofer, learning 2 for 1. Monet or Emily, it's not refreshing, so I don't know if there's something that you would like to share with us before we move on to the next task.
Yeah, so for my room, we also had some troubleshooting issues. Unfortunately, I think most of us only had view only for the Jamboard, so we weren't able to directly draw on it or put sticky notes or anything, but we did brainstorm some different ideas, and I wrote those down, so I'll just go ahead and share those out. So we did have the vase, so some of the different ideas that we had was to first use it as a rolling pin, since it's kind of longer in form, so it could be utilized for that. And then we also thought with Christmas coming, it could be used as like a cookie cutter. So if you roll out the dough and then you flip it to the other side, you could, you know, make unique shapes with it that way. Some of the other ideas were to use it as like something to hold a screen. So if you placed a board on it, you could put like a chalkboard or like set up your phone. So just to use that as kind of like a stand. And then another idea was to use it as a lamp. So kind of the same idea as the salt shaker, to put it upside down and then drill a hole in the top and then string the light through it and hang it up that way. And then I think one of the last ideas, since it's so pretty, somebody had just mentioned using it as like a fish sculpture. So if you turn it sideways and maybe paint it or something like that, use it as a form of art. So I would say the heuristics that were the most useful, I think both of them were. I think a lot of our ideas kind of lended to the converting it for a second function, the card 26. And then somebody from our group did mention that that one at first, when we were brainstorming, was a little bit difficult to apply that. But I think if we had a little bit more time, we could probably come up with some additional ideas. But yeah, it was a great brainstorming session.
Monet?
Yeah, so we also had a little bit of troubleshooting on our end. But does either Laura, Danielle, Ray, or Angela, you guys want to share out some of the ideas or you guys came up with? I know that one of the questions they had was, could they modify it? And yes, you can absolutely modify it. But did you guys have any prototypes or designs that you guys came up with?
This is Angela. I was thinking you could take the cap off of the top, flip it upside down, and maybe use it as like a filtering device for something. So rather than, you know, trying to keep stuff, trying to keep stuff out, you're trying to keep stuff in, you're going to try to keep stuff out. So just try to kind of like reverse it to kind of use it as a filtering device. That's one idea I had.
Awesome.
An idea that I had was kind of like an art project where you would keep a salt shaker and put like little wires through the holes on the top and maybe attach paper flowers or something. So you'd have a centerpiece.
Excellent. And so we did, so all the leads, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to put the new share link because we did have some issues and I do not know what was going on there, to make sure that for the next breakout room that we have the correct one. I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now. And so seeing and hearing everybody's ideas, did you see how different it was? Even though 2 of the breakout rooms had the same object of a salt shaker and the other 2 breakout rooms had the vase, and all of the different ideas that came out of the objects with those design heuristics, and everything was still completely different. And I think that's one of the beauties of having this, you know, prompts of encouragement to be able to explore into into different spaces. So, all right. Monet, do you want to go ahead and put our next task up?
Sure, let me get that.
All right, and let me make sure that I also.
There we go.
All right, so for this next one, we are going to make it a little bit more challenging. So for this go around, now we're actually going to apply it to an actual prototype. And many of you, oops, let me see. Let me make sure. Many of you may actually recognize this. So what it is it's an Arduino with a soil moisture sensor that while the soil is moist, that it will essentially be light up green. And then once it is dry, it will light up red. And so with this go around, you're going to again have multiple design heuristic cards. This time you're going to have 4 different ones. And we're going to ask that you apply at least 2 of the cards that are introduced to you in your breakout room. And so again, we will have the Jamboard. I just put up the new link that worked for our group. So I'm hoping that will work for everyone. And again, this time it's going to be applied to a particular prototype to, again, take us into a different design space. And we will move into our breakout rooms and we'll also answer the same 3 questions.
Okay, you'll be in the same rooms and I'll launch those rooms right now. Okay, everybody's back.
Welcome back, everyone. All right. I think the sense and feeling for this last breakout room was, at least in our group, we need more time. But because we just don't have as much time as we would like, I definitely want to make sure that all of us have a chance. We're still on schedule to share. Would anyone like to volunteer to go first?
I'll volunteer, I guess, on behalf of my group.
All right, Emily. Do you want me to go to your slide?
Yeah, that would be great. Yep, we're in room 3 for novel
Okay.
prototyping.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and share screen.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, so we did have success this time in being able to add sticky notes to the Jamboard link. So that was exciting. So I'll just read off some of the ideas that our group had. So let's see, customize by incorporating the pot to be part of the device. Add an LCD that accompanies lights to spell out wet or dry, or needs water, or could give low, medium, or high moisture. When adding water, the board will make sound when too much water is added. For visually impaired, so keeping in mind different audiences, make it have a sound to indicate low moisture. Have the device communicate with a phone app so others could also monitor. And then make device remote by bedside. So I think kind of in our discussion, we noted that the heuristic cards 9, 17, I guess all of them, but yeah, 9, 17, and 31 were pretty well represented in this. So I guess with the comments about moving the device, let's see, like into the pot or elsewhere, kind of talked about like customizing it for the user. Especially with the one, with having the phone app so that other people could also monitor. So I guess, I'm not sure if we decided our most creative idea, but those were definitely the ideas that were shared amongst us all. So I'm not sure if anybody else wants to add to that, but that's basically what we discussed.
Yeah, excellent. Those are excellent ideas. And I think because I believe my room also had the same, so I'm just going to go ahead and share on behalf of my team. So we also had the similar heuristics to apply, 9, 17, 23, and 31. And, some of the first things that came in mind were for those that may have, any different type of impairments or varying disabilities. So, similar to your group, with the visually impaired, is there something that we can add, such as a piezoelectric buzzer, or any other sensor, so that we really focus on varying sensories of the body. So whether it's hearing it or feeling it and not just being able to see it. you know, having the multiple heights. Can you put something down on the ground so that we'll know if it's, you know, either, you know, part dry or part wet? Keeping, you know, multiple sensors and not just one. So really, you know, building that user community and customizing it at the same time so that it'll have those multiple components so that more people can use it. And we also felt that 9, 17, and 31 were actually pretty relevant heuristics that we could work with here. And I would say when it comes to the questions, we just need more time. I think that's the one thing, because there's so many different areas we felt that we could go to. I mean, look now, you know, with the example of, you know, aquaphonics and whatnot, it could really take you into different design spaces, and especially those iterative spaces, you know, to have the novel prototyping.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Alex or Monet?
I can go next. In slide 6. Yeah, thank you, Liz. So for our heuristics that we were given, I'll just read off some of the ideas that our group came up with. So one was, in addition to making light, it should also make sound for people who cannot see very well or who are colorblind. The lights may be hard to see from across the room, so maybe they are also attached to something to amplify the light so it can better be seen. Add a digital display with additional sensors such as pH. Add a light sensor to determine if the plant is getting enough light as well as water. And the last one is, mount the sensor system beneath the plant so it can access soil data from the bottom. It can twist onto the plant container so the leads don't fall out of the dirt. So for our group, it was really easy for us to apply heuristic number 6 to adjust functions for specific users. I think that was really easy for them to identify how this prototype can be accommodating to specific users. One of the more difficult heuristics to apply was probably 43 and maybe 68. But the last one, the mount the sensor system beneath the plant, we felt that was a combination of maybe heuristic 68 and 18, because it was accessing a different direction, but it was also, it had a common base. So that was really cool to see the variation in these heuristics and approaches for this prototype. How about you, Alex?
So for us, we had the exact, it turns out, it was like the same heuristics as your group, Monet. So for us, I was like, some similar ideas. So I was like, just like as being able to add sound to accommodate for visibility. I'm pretty sure that was set across all 4 of the groups. But as another notable one that was shared was adding a temperature sensor to adjust or optimize the growth for environments for plants to see reading through an LCD, so that as I think as a Robert as I suggested that to be able to adjust as the soil moisture sensors to read for either a succulent or orchid. I think I suggested that, but as being able to read as the different types of plants that either require more sun or less sun, or being able to require some more water, or something that doesn't require as low maintenance versus high maintenance. And then as another member as shared about as creating a product where the soil moisture is not something they add to an already as a created potted plant, but something that that's already built in within the potted plant, something that can be already included into the potted plant, so you're not always having to buy new potted plants, or again something so pretty. I was like, it can be pretty, but as being able to have that already sensor built in, so then you can already have the sensor within the pot, so then you always know as to whether or not your plants need water or are dry. And yeah, I believe most of our of my group shared really found use out of 18, 43, and 68. 6 we found wasn't directly impacted or didn't really share from our group, but I was like, a lot of these really crossover and amongst all of our groups. I think I wanted to share that a lot of these we all had the similar as a prototype, but yeah, we all had similar ideas, but there's different approaches of how to use them with this prototype that we had.
No, that is absolutely excellent, everyone. I know this is like such a fast-paced workshop with a lot of information kind of thrown at you and a lot of new tools to be used. But this is why it's so exciting how you can see where the novel prototyping can come into play when you have all these varying prompts of the design heuristic cards that you're able to apply. So with that being said, we have some final thoughts and takeaways. Monet, would you like to, do you want me to go ahead and share? Or do you want to share? I don't know if I have it set yet.
Yeah. Let me get that screen share going.
All right, so while she gets the screen sharing, so I know it's been asked of where can we, find or learn more about these. And so these design heuristic cards are actually available online. I'm going to drop the link right now so that you guys can have that.
Yeah, got it. Yeah.
And
Get it?
so Monet, do you want to go ahead and wrap it up? I'm going to drop a couple of links out here for everyone.
Yeah, of course. So for the design heuristics, like I was mentioning earlier in my presentation, this is great for idea generation at the ideation phase, so at the beginning, but it's also great to revisit it or even bring it in as a concept transformation towards the end when you're doing the iterations. There's 77 cards. And each of the cards can be applied at different stages of the design process. And maybe those cards will be great at the beginning. You never think about the other cards, but towards the end, you're like, oh, I can really use these cards towards the end. And they weren't the cards you used at the very beginning. So these are really great, especially for prototype variation, because we ran into a lot of our groups that did similar prototypes, but how do we make them unique and distinct from one another? So this is a great resource and tool, technique that Liz was mentioning to kind of break that up. So every student, every group of students has a novel prototype. And you have the Design Heuristics website. We got our cards from Amazon. You can get them from Amazon as well. The Design Heuristics website also has really great research. That's where I learned a lot about the design heuristics in terms of a research setting utilized in a college classroom. There's not so much studies in a middle school and high school, but I feel like the same results are going to be conveyed if they did the same research in a middle school and high school, where these heuristics were successful in creating prototype variation.
And then just as we end, because we are at time, I did add the link for those of you who want to attend the closing of our conference today, as well as the design heuristics and the survey for our second session. And then just for us and for our knowledge, we would just like to know, how likely you're willing to use design heuristics before you leave us today. So thank you everyone once again, and I hope that this was very informative and will be very useful for you in the future.
Well, it looks like 82% of people in this workshop are likely to use design heuristics, so that's awesome.
All right, and just as a reminder, we do have a 5-minute break and the closing begins in about 4 minutes, actually. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.